Welcome to Boss Up, Goddess. I'm Elizabeth Ann Atkins, and I interview trailblazing women who share their wisdom to help us all live bigger, better, and bolder. The woman you're about to meet is Deanna Shoss, and she is doing that on a global scale. She calls
Mhm.
herself an interculturalist, and her company is Intercultural Talks, and her show is Intercultural Spark. She's also a fitness instructor, so she's all about that mind, body, spirit empowerment. Welcome, Deanna.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Oh, you're
Mhm.
welcome. So, when Deanna and I met, we realized we look alike and we both have so much energy. We're literally bouncing out of our chairs.
Right,
So, we
exactly.
really
And look at the
clicked.
smiles.
And
It's blinding.
it's wild. So we have this tremendous synergy, the sisterhood
Mhm,
here, and also the passion for interculturalism. So,
for
Deanna, can you
sure.
start by explaining what is an interculturalist?
Mhm. So I use the term intercultural in the broadest sense possible. And really, to me, it's like anytime you're looking at anything across lines of difference. So whether it's people from different nationalities or races or ethnicity or religion, or I like to say, I mean, technically you can use the skills of an interculturalist, which is being aware of your own styles and the way that you interact in the world so that you can adapt and be able to interact with others.
Mhm.
So when I talk about interculturalism, it's how do we all get along? How do we see other people's perspectives? And I do like to share the broadest sense because sometimes people hear the word and they think specifically intercultural, like how do I do work with people who are from Germany, or how do I do people work with people from other countries? But I think that we have a chance to take an intercultural approach to everything we do.
Oh, I love that. So, what does that
Mhm.
mean? Does it mean in the workplace, in personal relationships, in society in general? I mean, unfortunately, we have such a fractured
Mhm.
world right now. So, what does this mean to the broader picture, bringing people together?
Mhm. So personally, I was like, I'm not, I'm really a doctor. I don't just play one on TV. Um, I do this at home as well. So I'm actually part of an intercultural, interfaith relationship. So my marriage, I've been married for, oh my gosh, like over 30 years. And my husband's from Brazil. So and then I'm Jewish. He's not. We have a son. So we kind of get to live that intercultural existence every day. Um,
I love
Mhm.
that.
And so what
Love
that
it.
looks like in your personal life is it's about like I learned to speak Portuguese because if you want to understand someone else's culture, I think language is so critical to cultural identity. So
Hmm.
it's learning that religion, or my husband goes to synagogue, when we go to synagogue. So really understanding each other and what's important to each other from their perspective. In the workplace, it really plays into there's such a big move now for diversity, equity, inclusion, which is all about how do you not only bring together people of diverse backgrounds to work together, but how do you then engage them? How do you include people in the workplace so that you have just overall productivity is one thing, but if you can bring ideas in from people from all different backgrounds, you're much more likely to come up with really robust solutions to bring to the world.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And in your work, what have you discovered are some of those solutions? Just could it be something like we're all one and we all have a common vision for peace, love, and prosperity? Or
Mm. So unfortunately, the way that actually probably is not what it is. And the only reason I say that is because there's a couple different things that go to it. One, sometimes that can sound a little bit like that idea of like being colorblind, like, oh, we're all the same, we're all on the same path. But when you do that, you don't always see someone's really their true identity or their true purpose. And so seeing difference is really important. I will do this to the person to how people could be more intercultural in their personal lives. And the reason I say that is because when you get into a business setting, you always want your diversity, equity, inclusion goals to match what the goals are to the company. It would never make sense to come from the outside and say, do these three things and you're going to be great, because it won't actually address the needs of a company or what they're producing and what they're doing. What I would say, though, is that people can be more intercultural in their daily lives. So,
yes.
yeah. So, for example, even just being curious, even just being curious about someone else's culture, not necessarily asking, because I think, we've talked about this with you being multiracial, like not saying like, well, which I can't even, I'm saying this as an example, not that I would ever ask this, but idea of not like, well, what are you? What are you about? It's more being curious by listening to what other people are like. I like to do things, and I suggest this as almost as homework for people when I've taught classes, is go do your weekly grocery shopping at a grocery store that is completely different than where you would normally shop. So, for example, in Chicago, we have so many different ethnic neighborhoods. So you could do your entire weekly shopping at a Korean grocery store.
Oh my gosh.
What are the products? Oh, it's really fun to do.
I love
when you do
it.
Yeah, because all the different products that you can find. And also just realizing, I think that sometimes going back to what you said of like, oh, but we're all sort of on, we all do, people who want love and we want peace and we want to get along. It's more when you're in a grocery store, you realize just how normative and natural it is that everybody does these things. They just do them differently, but it's the same objective.
Oh, I love that so much. So, Deanna, there's a lot of talk about diversity and inclusion, but can you, from your perspective, talk about why it's so very important?
Just even from a business bottom line, and people show that teams that are diverse outperform teams that are homogenous time and again. So if you're looking at how to solve a problem, let's say let's say it's a work problem or a world problem, if you're looking at how to solve a problem and you're only taking one perspective, you're actually leaving out, or if we look at the US, if you're looking at what right now is still the majority culture. So let's say you're looking at one perspective through, maybe it's Caucasian, you're not bringing in other opportunities. You're missing out on so many different approaches to how you might solve an issue. And to be clear, though, it's not necessarily about physical appearance, because physical appearance, that's almost like layer one diversity, blonde hair, blue eyes, right? Because it's those. Because do you know what I mean, though? Because those are like the physical characteristics that we see that might be different. Where it gets really fascinating is how culture influences communication styles, or how culture communicates influences values. That's where you get to a deeper level of understanding, where it's about the content of what people are saying, it's how people are saying it. I would say if people are getting stopped just by I'll call it superficial in this context, but if you're getting stopped by superficial things like, skin color or ability or things like that, like you're really missing out on just an entire universe.
I love the name of your company, because Intercultural Talk can be so difficult. And even though so many people woke up in 2020, thankfully, it's still difficult to have conversations. It can be very awkward. A lot of white people told me they want to learn, they want to talk, but they are afraid to say the wrong thing and be accused of being racist or ignorant or insensitive. And so, how do you must be so skilled at serving as a catalyst for those conversations. How do you do that when there's tension and discomfort and awkwardness? How do you open it up for an honest discussion?
So there's a few different, there's so much going on in that question. Well, first of all, because being intercultural or trying to be more intercultural in the world is a practice. You're never an expert at it. You're learning all the time. I can even think of things with my husband, and this was after we'd been married probably 3 or 4 years, things that I would find out, I didn't even think twice. We'd be out in a social setting and someone would ask me, oh, so what does your husband do? And I'm thinking, oh, it's polite. They asked me, I would answer. But then in talking to my husband, what I realized is because they thought he didn't speak English. So it was actually an insult. So
Oh
it
my
was
goodness.
right. So it was subtleties that you didn't even realize. And that's actually even being like married to someone. So it's a practice. You're never 100% good at it. And you're probably always making making mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's one thing just to realize. One thing is the idea of intent doesn't equal impact. So realizing that what you say may not have an impact on someone the way that you intended it. And so it's owning. That's why starting with self rather than starting with the other is always the best way to approach it.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a tagline for my company, which is your message getting lost in translation from English to English?
Oh, I love that. That's
Because we can be
awesome.
communicating to you, because we can be saying the same thing. And that's my sweet spot for my company. So through a partner company, I do actually executive diversity services, which is how we met through Elmer.
Yes.
So that's where I would actually deliver, all out diversity, equity, inclusion, all those really intensive trainings that allow companies to thrive. My sweet spot is marketing and communications.
Mm-hmm.
So for example, I'll give an example. I used to do all the exhibits and events for O'Hare and Midway airports. So much fun. And clearly, I like to say it was a metaphor for globalism, because you have people from all over the world interacting in a single environment. So we did an exhibit once to tie into a city promotion called Teddy Bears at Home. So we had teddy bears that were historic teddy bears, but then we added an element of cultural equivalence, because not every culture has teddy bears, but every culture does have something about how you comfort a child. Do you understand what I mean like that? So
yes, I love it. I love it.
So yeah.
That is,
If you use the food analogy, you've got like tortillas, naan, pita, like cultures have similar manifestations or
yes.
similar concepts, but they manifest in different ways.
I love that. So what's your advice to people who are scared to have the conversations?
So one thing is, why are you having the conversation? And the reason I say that is because I think there are people who get really afraid when someone has an accent or doesn't speak English well. They freeze up and they just can't understand them. And you've probably even seen that. I know but what is helpful to realize is that usually if someone is speaking to you and maybe their English isn't the same as your English, they're likely not asking you, what you think about Sartre and existentialism.
Uh-huh.
If you look at the context of something and where you are, it's probably like, where's the bathroom? Where do I get food? Do you know what I mean? It could be really basic things. And so the parallel that I'm saying is why are you having the conversation? Is it because it's someone that you care for and you work with daily, or in a relationship, and you want to see if you're being culturally aware or culturally sensitive?
Yeah.
Okay, but even in that case, and you may hear this, I've heard this from people of color. On the one hand, it's not necessarily their responsibility to teach you. So there's a lot of resources. I even on my website, interculturaltalk.com, there's blog posts on how to be more multicultural, how to be intercultural. Every Thanksgiving and holiday season, I always write how to apply your intercultural skills at home, because for some people, your family's crazy, right? Not me, them. Intercultural skills can help there as well. So I would say that first. Why are you having the conversation? Do your homework. How can you do your homework first? And then ultimately, why are you having the conversation? If you're finding that you have conflicts, like it's a workplace situation, anything that people on the team can bring to the productivity of the whole is good. So there may be a reason to do it, but having a conversation about race just for race sake, I would probably ask what your objective is. And I don't know if someone else, well, okay. So actually, this is so interesting. So you talked about my show, Intercultural Spark. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow I have the mayor of Uranus. Um, I'll just stop at that. I have the mayor of Uranus tomorrow. But next Wednesday, I know they told me that I was the immature one, that there was no joke in the name and that I must be immature.
That is hilarious. Okay.
Next Wednesday, though, this is February 17th, 11 a.m. My guest is a gentleman. His name is Lucky Church. He is the social media manager for The Billy Porter. But we started a conversation. We're actually having a show about race. The show is He Said, She Said, and it's daily perspectives in black and white. So we agreed to have this conversation. The way that we got to this, though, is when we originally spoke, kind of like you, whenever you do a show, I talk to my guest first, see what we're going to talk about. And he was telling me how he had gone to the doctor and he felt that he was treated differently because he was a Black man. And we were not on video. And I don't know what it was, but I could hear him building up to, he starts to go, like I could tell he was going to be like, you know what I mean. And so I cut him off and I'm like, well, as a white woman, it was just, he, for whatever reason, pictured me as a Black woman when we were just talking on the phone. And so we just started talking about how fascinating it is, how the world, your view of the world and how people view you is different based on sort of the vessel that you're in.
Yes. Yes. It's bizarre because we have an identity that doesn't necessarily reflect our exterior.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And I've had lots of experiences because I'm a mixed race woman and my perspective is very much conscious of being a Black woman, even though I look like I look. Mm-hmm. And I had a situation once where it was during one of the presidential campaigns. It was when Barack Obama was running for his second term and I really wanted to vote. And I had just moved and I got there to the precinct and they said, you can't vote. And there were all these stories about voter suppression and all this. And it was an all white precinct. And the man just looked at me and said, you can't vote today. And I wanted to say, you just don't want me to vote because I'm Black. And then I realized he had no idea what he thought I was a white woman.
Sure.
So it's really bizarre. And I'm constantly studying it, fascinated by it, but also wanting to facilitate people's understanding and empowerment around these conversations so they can take action to be part of the change.
One exercise that's interesting, I've done this in like shorter workshops, not like really deep dive diversity, equity, inclusion trainings, but there's an exercise where it's like the circles of identity. And so you look at what are the top 3 things. So for example, the top 3 things that you might identify with. I think you just said you identify strongly as a Black woman. What are 2 others that you might strongly identify with?
Health and fitness, lifestyle, and spirituality.
So what do you think then when people look at you, what do you think are the first 3 things that people put onto you as the top things they notice?
They've told me they think I'm like a sorority girl, cheerleader, former, from high school, not either. And they think that I like to go to the spa and get my nails done. No. So a lot of very wrong perceptions about me, 0 accuracy. And it's annoying because they're just presumptions about what I look because of how I look.
Yep. When you talk about boss up goddess,
yes,
I have to say it like that. Every time I say the title, it comes out that way. Boss up goddess. One way to boss up is actually to embrace the 3 that you picked and not worry about the ones that the other one that society puts on you, because society is always going to put things on you. And what's crazy, it also changes over time. As you age, all of a sudden people have certain assumptions, because of your age. I had back surgery. This was years ago now, because we talked about I'm also into fitness. Years ago, I had back surgery and I'm going to the physical therapist and she says to me, what is it? How can I help you? What is it you want to be able to do? And she was thinking like, oh, I want to be able to lift my child, or I just want to be able to get in and out of the car. And I looked at her and I said, I've really got to be able to do a cartwheel again, because every year on my birthday, I do a perfect cartwheel, which I just did last May. It's coming up again. I said, I
Uh-huh.
have to be able to do a cartwheel again.
Uh-huh.
And, you know, it just completely changed like what she was thinking and looking at me, because that was unexpected in terms of how she saw me.
Uh-huh. I love that. See, it's all about our own. We have to find the throat chakra, wake it up, speak out, and speak our truth and not be scared about it. And I
Mm,
also want to give a shout out to sororities and cheerleaders and people who love spas. That's all beautiful. It's just not me, but people have that preconceived notion. It was just it's love for everybody. I'm just saying. I'd rather go for a run than get my nails done, or
mm.
um, it's all about. So anyway, thank you for that because it's all about speaking up, Deanna, right? I
It
love that.
is. It is.
So
Oh, go ahead.
no, you were going to talk more about boss up goddess in terms of, your own schedule and your own work style and your own messaging.
Yes. So it's owning who you are, but it's also there's an exercise. I didn't come up with it. This person, Chris Brogan, did. It's called the 3 words, where at the beginning of the year, you come up with 3 words that are kind of like the cornerstones for your year. And one of my words this year, I don't know if it's cheating because it's POV, POV, which is point of view.
Love that. Love that. Love that so much. Oh my gosh. What does that mean to you though?
So what it means to me is I think that sometimes as women, I'll only speak for me. Actually, speaking of being intercultural, I can't speak on behalf of all women. But what I can say is for me is that oftentimes I would either be quiet or would keep my opinion to myself. And what happens if you do that too long, you disconnect from it. You know, if you're so used to always kind of delegating, or not delegating, but you know what I mean, giving over to other people. What
Yes.
POV means is, what do you think about something? And so what I do almost as a daily exercise is when I'm reading the news or when I'm reading articles or seeing things on TV, what is my point of view? Because you'll actually start to realize like things you stand for, beliefs that you stand for. um, this is a silly example, but an easy one. I have a newsletter going out. And so I'm writing about the Super Bowl because it's timely. And, the question I had is, was it the game? Is it the ads? Is it the puppies? Is it, the 43-year-old quarterback or the 68-year-old coach? Like, what are the reasons that people watch the Super Bowl? And what I realized is my point of view is, as relates to marketing or, kind of getting people to embrace, to come or buy, let's say, the things that you're selling, is that it doesn't matter. It actually doesn't matter. As long as you have these different things and you're drawing them in, once they're there, like you're doing everything you can to draw people in. And the reason I say it doesn't matter is because so many people get intimidated by, you have to know what your message is, you have to do your target marketing, and you don't want to be all over the place.
Right.
But there's a pretty wide area that you can operate in and still be really successful.
Mm-hmm.
And you know who that's helpful for, Elizabeth, is the women who feel like, well, I can't choose. I'm a mom, I'm an exerciser, I'm a professional, and they feel like these are separate hats that I need to have as distinct people. Except that we're only one person. You can't be 3 different people. There's no way you can be effective if you're completely segmented like that.
Oh, I love that so much. Integration,
Mm-hmm.
because that's a lesson I've learned, Deanna, so much. Oh, thank you. Bringing it all together. So how do you do that in marketing? If you're an entrepreneur and you're a mom and you're a fitness person and you're a business person, how do you bring it all together
Mm.
and
So
find
the
it?
good news is, if you're an entrepreneur, I will speak specifically for entrepreneurs now. The mistake that I made in the past, and it's the mistake that I made, but it was also one that I would say was thrust upon me by, coming of age during sort of the IBM blue suit idea that
Mm,
business is business, personal is personal. You work from 9 to 5. If you're not working, you're slacking, like all these ideas that we had in our head in terms of how work was supposed to get done. So the first thing I would say is that if you are an entrepreneur, there are so many hours in the day. Structure them the way that serves you.
ooh, yes, yes, yes,
Right?
yes.
So that might mean that at noon, your son wants, because everyone's schooling from home now, wants to have coffee or something with you. I'm going to go up and have coffee. Now, it might mean then I'm going to work a little bit later because of, if I've got deadlines. I mean, you have things to accomplish. But I think the ability to manage your day and not actually make denigration is the word, but that doesn't feel like the right one. That feels too strong. But I'm saying sometimes, like for fitness, so many people don't work out because they say, oh, that's not as important as what I need to do for work. Yet if you put it on your schedule as a meeting and say that it is important, it's going to get done.
I love that so much. We have so much power, and that's what the mission of this show is all about. And you exemplify that because you are your own boss and you boss up to your mission, which is global and so important and so relevant today, especially. And I just admire you so much for all that you're doing.
Thank you. You know, the thing I like to say, because you were talking about Intercultural Spark, the show, that a lot of my clients, like I said, I do the diversity, equity, and inclusion with executive diversity services. And that's where we can really actually do global, like huge projects for big companies. But day to day, I work a lot with individuals and entrepreneurs. So some people are actually even retired, but they have that thing that they just have to do. Or entrepreneurs that's what the show is about, Intercultural Spark.
Yeah.
It's about that spark inside each of us that drives us to influence to really have an impact, a positive impact on our sphere of influence. It might be the globe, but like my friend from Uranus, hilarious. He came up with this idea. He made up the name for the city. I'm giving it all away for tomorrow, but you can see him and ask questions. It's hilarious. He put up a zebra that you can stick your head through. So like your head's coming out of a zebra's butt. How much fun is that if you're traveling with a 10-year-old? And called it Uranus. He named himself to be the mayor of Uranus. And now it's a tourist destination on Route 66. I find that to be hilarious. And a lot of people are having fun. You know, I know. I just told you the whole thing. But now hopefully people will want to be like, how did he even think of all this? It's pretty hilarious.
Right. Where can we watch your show?
Oh, you can be Intercultural Sparks or Intercultural Talks with an S on YouTube, or just Intercultural Talk on Facebook.
Okay.
So, but I like to say I put fuel on the fire. Like if you've got that spark, you would come to me to figure out like, how do I amplify it? How do I get the word out? Particularly with all the new communications with, you know, people sometimes don't know social media or video. Like, how do I get the word out? Like you're doing a great job with video. Some people are afraid to go on video.
Yeah. Thank you. So you help people with their marketing, and you help people with their marketing in a way that appeals to everyone with the multicultural, intercultural
Exactly. A way that resonates with people of all backgrounds, for sure.
Oh, I love that. We need that so very, very much. That's phenomenal. So, Deanna, is there anything else you can tell us women about how to boss up in our communications?
So don't be afraid to be you, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there, because we're often so concerned about what people thought of us or how we came across. Most people think about them. It's almost like never about you. People relate to you in the way that you somehow remind them of themselves. I hate to say it, but that's kind of how it does. And so as long as once we realize that it doesn't matter, like that in some ways no one's paying attention, and so you can be your full self, and the people that you do resonate will gravitate towards you.
I love that so much, because many times we're trying to be everything for everybody, and we want everybody to like us and everybody to resonate with whatever we're saying, and that's just not going to happen. So I love your message.
Yeah. Or we either resonate like we're afraid, or we think that we have to act a way that people want us to, or, and this is one thing, the world is bountiful. The world is bountiful, and everyone has a space. There's space for everyone in the world. This idea that we're all competitive with each other, and if somebody else succeeds, you can't, or I can't, it's not. No, more is more, for sure.
More is more. Love that. I love that. I love that. And can you say a little bit more about what you do with Executive Diversity Services? That's um, the company that provides trainings for corporations and organizations.
Yeah, so Executive Diversity Services, the president is a gentleman named Elmer Dixon, and it is full service diversity, equity, inclusion company. Everything from how to create respectful workplaces to unconscious bias training. We've done global things like for I think 60,000 employees across PepsiCo. Right, so it's a network of the company then has a network of experts around the globe, but we'll often go in, it's a best practice to go in and do an assessment so that you know what a company specifically needs. And what companies are trying to do now is they're trying to have a diversity, equity, inclusion strategy, a long-term strategy, so that it's not something that's off in the corner. In the past, I think you had, here's our company, here's what we do, and now we're going to have a diversity office. That will never have that be a core value. It really needs to start with your top management and then trickle down. And through that assessment, you can see what areas of need there are. What are some of the blind spots? What trainings are needed? And when you talk about diversity within a company, people immediately think of racial and ethnic diversity and how do we diversify our workforce. That is often what people think of a lot, but it goes a lot deeper to once you have a recruiting strategy and you're bringing more people, how are people being included? How are people being promoted? How are people engaged? And I would also say you often have issues of, when you have a company where you've got the office staff and the people out in the field, you've got a communication difference there. So your differences or your things that you might need training around can really be multi-leveled. So that assessment then allows us to create a training program that's customized for the company.
Oh my goodness, that is so valuable. And the president, Elmer Dixon, is amazing. He's one of the founding members of the Seattle Black Panther Party chapter. And he went on from being a militant activist to being part of the solution, really in a powerful, powerful way. So
he was like the
congratulations.
EEOC officer for the Seattle Parks Department and kind of evolved from there and has been part of Executive Diversity Services for, I think, over 30 years now. So his experience is vast.
Wow, Deanna, you are amazing. I love all the things that you're doing on a personal and professional level. And the fact that you're a fitness enthusiast is all the more icing on the wonderful cake because you're just exuberantly representing wellness and passion for life and empowerment for women. Love it all.
Thank you. Yes, fitness is so important. It helps with mental health. It helps with stress. It really is an important thing, and of course, your physical health as well. So, but yeah, I know that's something that we both share in terms of the commitment to fitness. I know it's important.
Yeah. Is there anything else you'd like to share, Deanna?
I'm just peeking over at my notes. I was going to have today introduced by the letter P. So my three things were power. Don't be afraid. It's not even a question of find your power. I think we have power. Don't be afraid to exhibit your power or to step into, to manifest it. Don't be afraid to manifest your power. We talked about POV. Be sensitive to your point of view, and don't be afraid to express your point of view if it differs from someone else. That's that. I hear what you're saying. Have you thought of it this way? I hear what you're saying, or this is how I see it. So power, point of view. And the last one is pizzazz. I know you've got your beautiful shirt. I'm going to wear like my diamond earrings. They're just because I can. Yes. Have some pizzazz. I say if you're bored, it's your own. I hate to say it because for all the people who are bored right now, I'm really sorry. But I feel like if you're bored, it's kind of your fault because like you're the one who has the power to find a course, to learn something new, to get up and do something. Like if you're bored and you're waiting for someone else to come and entertain you, that's not the way it's going to work. No. You're the one who use your own pizzazz.
Oh, I
put on your diamond earrings on a Tuesday night, right?
love that. That is so boss up goddess. I have a good time all by myself all the time. So I hear what you're saying. I put on my shimmery shirt for you.
Yes, I love it. So that's why, and
So-
you're right. You said this when you started, that you and I, like, we swear that we're like totally sisters somehow. Because every time we were talking, we had the same favorite quote, the one about don't be afraid to shine. I mean, we had
Right.
so much in common. It's a lot of fun.
Yes, yes. Power, point of view, and pizzazz. I love that word
Yes.
so much. Pizzazz. So as a writer write in books, point of view is whether it's from the I first person or
Yep.
third person. So POV is like an editorial term. POV. So I love that. But you know what? Let me just say, everything you said about those three things is don't be afraid to. Clearly, fear is the common
Yep.
denominator in those three things. So why are we so scared?
You know, usually I believe it's not your voice that is telling you that you're scared. You know, if you look at our nervous systems, like back in the olden days, like when we were caveman, you know, that fear was really important. You would have your fight, flight, or freeze response to things because there was actual fear. What happens now is our nervous system hasn't evolved, even though we have. And so we get things that make us afraid. You know, I can't remember if I mentioned this or not. So 5 years ago, I had breast cancer. So it was very small. It was fine. Like, I'm totally fine. But after that, I came up with a phrase, is what scares you dares you. And so I say that when you feel that fear, the moment, it's actually kind of annoying, because as soon as something makes me afraid, I'm like, oh shoot, now I have to do it. Because like, that's it. What scares you dares you to do it.
Ooh. Ooh, I'm going to put that on the wall. Wow, that's amazing. What scares you dares you.
Dares
So
you.
Better boss up and do it.
Yeah. Which, just for the record, I just want to say that as far as skydiving goes, it's not that I'm afraid of it. I just really have no interest in doing it. Okay. So there are limitations to this.
Asterisk. I love that.
Right. I'm okay with that. But think about it, Elizabeth, even the opportunity to be on someone else's show, you know, I find it to be such a gift. If I'm invited to speak on someone's podcast or someone's show, that's a real gift. And I feel an obligation. And of course it would be, I imagine that other people are like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, what am I going to say? You know, you're going to say your truth. You're going to say what you know. And you've got shows, you know, every day, all the time. So it mixes into the voices. You don't have to be the end all be all with everything you say. You're one of, so be your one of, you know?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Oh, this is so, I can't wait to rewatch this to learn again all that you said.
Me and you both, I'm listening to this stuff. I'm going, wow, I'm getting all excited.
I think that's, again, the mission. It's that we have to learn from each other, and we have to inspire and cheer each other on. The last couple interviews I've done, women have talked about how vicious other women can be in the workplace, in friendships, in general. And so I'm on a mission to spread the love, because why would we want to hate on each other when there's hate coming because of, misogyny and such,
You know what? And there's so many people in the world. This goes back to, I was talking about being at the Department of Aviation. We used to run we had hundreds of musicians that would play music at the airport for entertainment for travelers. And I think one year we all just decided, all right, we're only hiring nice musicians this year, nice and easy to work with, musicians. Because we can, and there's a lot of them, So, you know, it's just the idea that if you know that someone is that toxic, negative force, in some cases, you can change your life. You don't have to have those people in your life, particularly if it's someone who's a friend or even a vendor. You know, you've got a choice to put your money where you want to. There's no reason that you need to buy from someone who makes you feel bad. Like, why would you even do that? Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
So,
for sure.
I know sometimes it's it may be in situations with a boss or something where you have a little bit less freedom, but the more that two things, the more that you can actually surround yourself with people who are kind. But the other thing too is you've got to approach it, and this is the intercultural approach. You can't say, I wish they would change their mean, because you can't change someone else. You can only change yourself.
Ooh.
So you can say things like, you know what, I really value our time together, but you can't talk to me that way. Like, I won't accept that from you. When you're ready, we can work again, or we can figure out how to do it. But you can set boundaries for yourself. You don't have to take it.
Boundaries. I love that
Mm-hmm.
word, boundaries. And you set the boundaries by speaking.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. In fact, even in women's self-defense, the first thing they do is setting verbal boundaries. Yeah, I did. It's called Impact. Fabulous organization in Chicago. They do women's self-defense, like where they have the guy like dressed up in the foam and you get to like, but the first thing that you do is you learn how to set verbal boundaries. So, that was a big one. That was a really good one to learn in terms of how to set those.
What's
The
an
other thing,
example? Wait, I'm sorry. If
an
you're,
example of setting verbal boundaries.
yes,
So, can you hear me now? Okay.
yes.
The context, because it was a women's self-defense class, is if someone's too close to you, or if someone is coming to you, is to actually literally just go no, like to get your, fill your space. So to make your body big and be like, no, like to just even say that out loud to set that parameter, or you're too close. No, you're too close. Setting verbal boundaries that way, at least in a setting. The reason that that's important is because we are taught as women to be nice. And we just talked about the fact that we wish everyone was nicer. But if someone's saying crap to us, sometimes we're like, oh, that's okay. Someone on the street maybe gives you a compliment. So you're like, oh, great, thank you. But then they keep coming. And we're like, oh, really? No, it's okay. No, okay, bye, thanks. And we're like, got that smile because we're trying to be polite. That's where if someone keeps coming after you've been like, no, leave me alone. You need to set that verbal boundary. No. And not worry that they're probably going to be like, oh, well, you're a witch or you're a this. It doesn't matter. You need to set boundaries for yourself. Does that, you know what I mean?
Oh, it takes a lot of courage though, especially if you're in public and it's a stranger because you don't know what their response is going to be. I mean, I remember years ago in a nightclub, if a guy wants to buy you a drink or dance with you and you say no, thank you, they get an attitude and there's hostility and it's scary because you just don't know what their next response is going to be. And that fear can definitely make you just want to be nice and try and hope they'll go away if you just keep smiling and saying no thanks,
But
you know.
unfortunately, I think that's what doesn't happen though. That smiling and okay. And now, especially with the whole Me Too movement, sometimes people say, well, that can be misconstrued as ambiguity. And so that's why just being
Oh.
firm with language is important.
Mhm.
And being firm, you don't necessarily, I was doing kind of the strong, because that was from the self-defense class, but you can be very clear and use very direct language to make sure that your
Mhm.
point is being clear and that there's no ambiguity.
Mhm, mhm. I love that. That's really
Mm-hmm.
excellent advice about speaking up and staking your protecting your private space and setting those
Mm-hmm.
boundaries.
Mm-hmm. And it
Setting
has to
bound
do,
Mhm.
I was
Go
just to
ahead.
say, with setting those boundaries, it feels like it all feels intertwined in some way to me, that idea of owning who you are and not being afraid to be who you are. And some
Mhm.
people will not like you. A lot of people will not like you. You know why?
Right.
Because if you are yourself, there's going to be tons of people who do like you, but of course not everybody likes you. And that's okay.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, that's such an important message
Mm-hmm.
because once you start speaking up and showing your authentic self, and if it conflicts with the meek and mild person that you used to be, oh my goodness, the
Mm-hmm.
people are going to just drop off.
But the ones that are
But
important will gravitate to you more.
mhm,
One other thing I
mhm.
want to mention, only because we were talking again about how to be really nice, and I just signed up for this today. It's the Global Women's Leadership Forum. I hope I have it correct. It's global global, what I say, WLF on Twitter. So the global, they're doing this kindness month. You can be a kindness ambassador for the entire month of February. All you do is fill out your name and your email address on their website. You get an official kindness badge, and you just have to commit to doing something kind for someone else every day in February. So I just did that because a friend of mine was a kindness ambassador. I was like, that's amazing. How do you do that? Like, do you have to actually be nice? And then I'm like, I don't know if I'm up for this for 30 days. But the woman from the Global Women's Leadership Foundation sent a note. She goes, you can do it too.
So what have you done that's kind?
Well, I just signed up. Look at me already backpedaling.
You probably automatically did kind things today.
I know what I did. I was on my friend Elizabeth's show. Does that count?
Yes. Definitely.
I know what else I did. And I totally believe in doing this, but someone who was on my show a couple of weeks ago asked if I would do an informational interview with a young woman who just graduated from Indiana University. So I am doing that. I think it's easier than we think to do volunteer stuff. So that, like, set boundary, 30 minutes, easy call. Like, I hope I can give her advice and help. I think there's little time like that we can carve out in our day.
And they'll remember that. Yeah, that's powerful. So one of our authors created something called the kindness scale, and he does trainings, and it's kindness, meaning there's 3 levels of it. So the first level is real easy, free stuff, like smile at somebody, a stranger, or hold the door for somebody. The next level is doing something like making a phone call like you're doing, or, do a
call your mother.
Right. And then the third level of the kindness scale is doing something like donating a vital organ to save someone's life.
Wow. Yeah. That's big.
Yeah. But it's about creating this conscious desire on a daily basis to do kind things for people. And, you reap what you sow. Of course, you don't do it for the purpose of what you're going to get, because there's that giver's high, that helper's high. So when you're nice to somebody, you just feel really good. You get that good feeling back when someone smiles at you and says, thank you for holding the door.
Which, though, that is a good mental health tip, that doing something for others does actually make you feel. It does have, it's like when they say it's nicer to give gifts than to get gifts because of how you feel in the giving. So there is something valid about that. I don't know that. Do you think that diminishes the kindness if someone does it because it makes them feel good? But if the other person benefits, does that matter?
So here's an example. I met this young lady on an airplane a few years ago, and we sat and talked, and it was just totally random. It was her birthday. I bought her a coffee when we landed for our layover.
Sure.
I gave her one of my books. I put some cash in the book, and I also gave her a crystal because I had just been in Sedona, Arizona, and bought a bunch of crystals. And so I felt so happy when I gave her this stuff. Partly because she was shocked that I was a complete stranger, and I gave her this, surprise, cool stuff, beautiful conversation. You know what I mean? So that makes me want to do nice things for people again. However, the motivation was in the moment, and it just felt like a flow. It wasn't like, oh, I think I'm going to give her this. No, it was just like, it was organic. And then the feeling back and seeing her glow, it was like she lit up the airport when we were sitting at Starbucks. It was beautiful.
So sweet. It's wonderful.
So it's so simple too.
Well, that's also where, when you get sensitive to your point of view and to what you're thinking and feeling, you kind of know that moment where you're like, oh, yeah, I guess I could do this. Or oh, this is don't turn that down. Because some people, they're going to think I'm weird. Like, they're going to think I'm weird if I'm doing all this stuff for them. They're going to, I think sometimes people shut themselves down because they think they don't know how the other person will receive it. In Judaism, there's a word in Judaism. So a mitzvah is a good deed. And they say that it's even a mitzvah to initiate the conversation with someone else. So if you're waiting for people, like if you go to an event or you go someplace and no one's talking, it's a mitzvah for you to make the initial overture to actually make someone else feel welcome.
Oh,
So what
wow.
you did was a mitzvah.
Oh, there's
Mm,
so many examples, and it's Deanna, the power of the simplicity of these things. I remember I was picking my son up from sports camp at a high school one day, and there was a woman, and she looked like she had just come from another country based on her clothing.
mhm,
And she was staring at me with this intrigue. It was summer, and I probably didn't have very many clothes on.
mhm,
And I think she was looking at me like, "Oh, American woman, look at her." And but I don't know, but it
mhm.
was intrigue and it was
Yeah.
positive. And I flashed a huge smile and I said, "Hi, how are you?" And I'm telling you, she lit up like the sun
So
that
nice.
I
Yep.
acknowledged her,
Mhm,
you know? So those simple things, it's so powerful just to say hello to someone, make eye
mhm.
contact, offer a kind gesture of hope holding the door if they're carrying a box or something, or
It's even
ask, "Are
more
you
important
okay?"
now. Yes, it's even more important now because with the mask, I know I will find myself, it's so funny,
Oh.
the whole idea of smizing. I'm smizing. Like somebody was riding their bike by. I remember I had my mask on, I'm like, I'm smizing at you.
Does
I
that mean
can
smile with
tell.
your
Yes,
eyes?
smile with your eyes. Exactly. I've been practicing smizing because with the mask, like you can't see it, it's such a barrier.
Right?
Yeah, it's really easy, I think, for people to be rude now because people are afraid that someone's going to give them COVID. Like that's not good. That people are starting to get a little bit afraid from each other. So you're right. That naturalness of still remembering that it's okay to smile,
Mhm.
and that it's okay to reach out the way you can is important.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Yes. Leave it to a communication specialist to say a new word. You made up a whole new word. That is so
That's so
cool.
funny. No, leave it to a marketing communication specialist to be like, yes, I did. It was Tyra Banks. I got it from Tyra Banks. Um, but as a marketer, you just do it with confidence. You just go, yes, thank you.
As a person of integrity, you acknowledge and give the
Yes, I got it
attribution.
from Tyra.
That was great.
Too funny.
That's hilarious. All
Mhm.
right. Excellent. So much fun. I hope that people watching are smiling and laughing and learning as much as you and I are tonight, because this is just absolutely wonderful.
Mhm. It really is. Thank you so much. I mean, the opportunity to talk about things that make you feel emboldened, that make you feel happy, it really does. It's like I feel even the change in my own posture, which I told you I was going to do this. I'm trying to get as close to you as I can because I'm so excited to talk to you. And I feel like at some point you're going to look and it's just going to be like my nose on the camera. So I apologize for that, but I'm very engaged with everything we're saying.
Yeah, yeah. The whole virtual experience is so bizarre, but I hope that the pandemic ends just as quickly
Mm,
as it started and that I can be
yeah.
in Chicago visiting you and meeting you in person. So,
Yes, absolutely. I'll buy you the coffee this time.
oh, thank you. All right, Deanna Shoss, Intercultural Talk. The show is Intercultural Spark, and we are so grateful that you joined us tonight on Boss Up Goddess, because your wisdom and your ideas and your innovation is just so empowering for all of us.
Thank you so much. Really an honor and just so much fun to spend time with you. So I love all that you're doing and thank you so much. Oh, and let's tell everyone. So Elizabeth, her sister, and her mom are going to be on Intercultural Spark on March 4th because we're going to talk about like generations of multiracial family, and they've all
Mhm,
written books, and
mhm.
it's really incredible. So I can't wait till that. That is March 4th at 10 a.m. Central on Intercultural Spark.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that. We're super excited. It's very unique that we are two sisters writing and publishing our mother's book and our own books. So
Nice.
thank you for
Oh, that's
acknowledging
special.
that.
Absolutely.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Thank you.
So
I'll
until
put,
then,
yes, and I'll put links for people to contact you and watch your
please.
show here in the
Absolutely.
description box.
Fantastic. Thank
Okay,
you.
you're
Thank you so
welcome.
much.
Thank you, Deanna. You're amazing. Good luck with
Thank you.
everything.
Thanks so
You're
much.
welcome.
You
You're
too.
welcome. Thanks. And
Bye-bye.
thank you, all of you, for watching Boss Up Goddess tonight. Please do like, share, subscribe, comment, and
Mhm.
click the notification bell so you'll know every time I go live or upload a new video. Please also follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.
Mm.
Meanwhile, boss up, goddess, and remember, you have the power. I'll see you next time.